Hello. In this video, I'm going to be ranking every piece of media that I got through in the month of September 2025. Now, this one's really hard to make. Currently, I'm writing the script on the night of the 18th of October. Not sure exactly when this video will drop, hopefully soon. But it is later than it normally would be, so I'm going to very briefly just get that stuff out of the way. Earlier this month, I got some really bad news involving a family member that required me to essentially drop my life for a second to drive to a different state for almost a week. As a result, my headspace has naturally been a bit off kilter, and also I just didn't want to go from that to immediately jump into video scripting. Who would have thought? But I do feel like I'm at a place now where I can make this video, and so here we are. I chose to preface this at all just because, for one, I wanted to explain it being a bit later than it otherwise would be, but also because now I've had this big, life-altering moment happen in between having experienced these medias, while also having gone through some in October that are more fresh on my mind at this point. So I'm gonna do my best to chronicle my thoughts here, but just cut me some slack here. There are going to be spoilers for everything I'm going to talk about in this video, or potential spoilers, I suppose. There are going to be timestamps below, so you can just kind of move the bar wherever if you don't want to get spoiled on something, if you've already seen something, or if you don't care about spoilers. So yeah, general spoiler warning. I do name all the timestamps, and also I'll say the name of the thing at the start of me talking about it before I spoil anything in it, so yeah, you've been warned. With all of that preamble out of the way, let's get started. The worst piece of media that I got through in the month of September 2025 is the Sabaody Archipelago arc from One Piece. And to just say this now, we have multiple One Piece arcs to talk about in this video, and my experience with all of them were through the manga. So any pacing issues or filler segments or improper adaptations will play no effect on my feelings of these arcs because no, I'm not watching the One Piece anime. Maybe I'll watch a few clips at some point, but otherwise, nah. Anyhow, yeah, I did not like the Archipelago. The whole subplot at the start of the arc was just stupid. We'll talk about my feelings on One Piece as a series later on, but one of the worst possible things for a media to be, in my opinion, is a bad or unenjoyable comedy. A bad horror movie can still be so bad it's good because it's so bad that it's kind of funny. Same thing with something like an action series, or a mystery series, or an isekai series, or just any number of these things. But with comedy, when it's actively bad, it's not funny because it's bad comedy. This whole subplot at the start, despite being only a handful of chapters with the fake Sanji stuff, was just very grating, and it gave me an already very negative outlook going into the actual archipelago itself. And once we got there, I quickly realized, oh, this isn't a real arc. It's a hodgepodge of things that will matter later on, but looking at the arc as a standalone, I'm just gonna be blunt, I didn't enjoy it. Outside of Law, who was cool, I liked his introduction. I know I'm gonna like him later, but again, I know I'm gonna like him later because he barely got any content. Things like the Will of D, the Celestial Dragons are cool plot points, but they mean quite frankly nothing to me at the point of this arc's finish. And to add on top of that, the Celestial Dragons are a cool concept, but they suck. They're not fun. So, while I think I'll be able to look back on this arc more fondly as the start of the Marineford saga, this was just such a letdown. And don't worry, even though I'm working on One Piece now, like I said before, we have more One Piece to go, and I will not be as negative there. Probably. At 24, we're going to be moving on to Punishing Grey Raven, Chapter 7, Hidden Story. And, yeah, I mean, just like One Piece, we have a good amount of Punishing Grey Raven to talk through as well, where, straight up, over half of this list is either One Piece or PGR. So if you're fans of those, congrats, this is the video for you. But alright, with PGR, I need to be upfront about something where the initial plan was to separate the hidden stories from the main stories because the read order made that seem like it'd be important, and that's how I've been doing it so far. Where you would need to finish Chapter 2 in order to unlock the hidden story for Chapter 1, and so on. However, this trend eventually just breaks, where from Chapter 9 on, at least until Chapter 12, since that's as far as I am currently at the time of writing this script, the hidden story unlocks immediately preceding the completion of that chapter. So, from every chapter post Chapter 8, I'll be combining the main and hidden stories, so yeah, you're not going to see, like, chapter 10 hidden story on this list, but you will see chapter 10 on this list, just for example. Anyhow, finally, chapter 7 hidden story. Why is it this low? Because it's a pre-chapter 9 hidden story in Punishing Grey Raven. It's perfectly serviceable, but, like, it's not good. It's also not bad. Let's see here. Anima says, bad guys, then just yeet them all to space. So that's notable, I guess. 5 out of 10. What do you want from me? Moving on to number 3, I have Punishing Grey Raven Chapter 8 Hidden Story. Same thing, but, like, at least we got some actively good content. Again, it's not great, but it's closer to being actively good, so that's something. Don't worry. We'll sing the praises of Punishing Grey Raven next month. Now, for all of you being scared that it's just One Piece and PGR here at the bottom, you're right. At 22, I have Thriller Bark. This might be a little bit biased because I dropped One Piece during Thriller Bark, like 20 chapters in. Now, granted, I always intended on coming back. I didn't, like, drop the series for good. But I decided after, like, 2 years, ironic considering the later time skip, that I would finally do it. Sit down and read One Piece again. And, oh boy, what a strong start with Brook. I don't like Brook. Where I'm at now in the manga, I still don't like Brook. And his introduction was not fantastic. Pretty easily, not my favorite of the Straw Hats, but we'll get into my Straw Hat ranking much later. The actual Thriller Bark, like the actual, like, island itself, the ambiance, and really just, like, the aesthetic in general of this arc is actually one that I like a lot. And then there's the antagonists. Oh, joy and whimsy. Thriller Bark antagonists, what a truly great collection we have. We got Dr. Eggman, he's kind of cool. The tiger guy is in this arc. Yeah, he's certainly a character. Perona, I mean, she's whatever. Like, she's probably the best, I guess, antagonist of this arc, but, like, she's not good. Her main opponent is Usopp, and I don't like Usopp, so with their content being as intertwined as it is, I didn't care much for her either. Although I did like her dynamic with Zoro. Like, that was kind of funny later on. That was funny. But there's also Moria, who, again, I didn't care for. The whole gimmick of the shadows and shit is cool in theory, but in execution, I kind of found it lame, to be honest. But hey, at least we had the scene of Nami proclaiming to be a man. I can't lie to you, that shit was mad funny. Sanji and Zoro had some good moments, and despite having been pretty removed from One Piece at this point, this arc did re-solidify in my mind that they had my favorite dynamic in the series at this point. From where I'm standing now, they still do, as of post Fishman Island. Fishman Island won't actually be on this video, it'll be on the next one, but again, the script is late, so as of right now, where I'm at right now, I still think that Sanji and Zoro are my favorite dynamic in One Piece. The vague foreshadowing to Vegapunk is cool, and in general, I found Kuma to be fine, I guess. The nothing happened moment with Zoro was great, and Sanji backing him up afterwards was also really great. Overall, Thriller Bark had some really great ideas, some really poor execution, but by the end of it, I didn't hate it, so that's something. But also, I can't say I particularly enjoyed it outside of, like, a few scenes, I guess. 6.5 out of 10. On to number 21, an entry people are probably not expecting, but I have Sword Art Online Abridged, episode 19. I fucking love SAO Abridged as a series, and I've been watching it for too long and rewatching it for too long. I think it's not only hilarious, but a genuinely good piece of media in its totality. That being said, episode 19 was a bit rough. Straight up, the episode was good. I liked what they did. The problem is that the original content from SAO proper was just really bad. So whilst, yes, SAOA definitely did do the best they could with the hand they were dealt, the hand they were dealt was shit. At the end of the day, though, is it one of the lesser SAOA episodes for me? Yeah, but I think it was always going to be that way, just given the material they were working with. 7 out of 10. Cracking into the top 20, I have Baan, which is a small anime episode produced here on YouTube by Giguk. And this is just so surreal. The episode itself is good, it tells the story it wanted to tell in a pretty short span, but I just love it conceptually. I don't regularly watch Gigguk nowadays or anything, but I did when I was younger, and I've seen a lot of his content over the years. I listened to the Trash Taste podcast a few years back. So him going on to create his own work is really awesome, and really that's why it's up here. I really just have a lot of respect for the fact that this even exists. And again, I think this is awesome. 7 out of 10. Slipping back into Punishing Grey Raven, at number 19, I have Punishing Grey Raven, Chapter 10, Eternal Engine. And it was good. Yamala was fun here, a bit cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for sure, but if evil, why hot? Bianca was back in the main story, and she's one of my favorite characters in PGR, especially at this point, so getting more content from her was great. Seeing this whole new faction was good in a very small moment, but Bianca hanging up on Noctis after Noctis was complaining about how Bianca wouldn't use her, I quote, motorbike I prepared, it's really cool, and then actually riding the motorbike, it's really cool. Bianca talking to Sofia towards the end was also great, with her talking about how there is no God in this world, and that despite that, she doesn't stop praying, not to a god, but to herself. Not an answer from a higher being, but praying that somewhere deep within her she can come to her own conclusion. I think that this point is so poignant, specifically because it's from Bianca, who we know to have been a nun of the church in her earlier years, more on that later. 7.5 out of 10. At 18, I have a classical book, actually, and that is The Stranger by Albert Camus, about a man named Marceau. And, I read this because, haha, funny, Limbus Company, but my experience with the book did help me understand Project Moon rendition of Marceau a bit better. So, how did I feel about the book? It was fine for the first half. The second half, basically, everything from the trial on was actually good, like, pretty damn good. I get why this is considered a classic. The prose of the novel was very distinct, but I'm not sure I've read something quite like it. Marceau himself was definitely the bizarre star with endless monologues only to say, okay. But again, that does help me understand the Marceau we see in Limbus. So, yay, 7.5 out of 10. Jumping back into One Piece, I have Return to Sabaody at number 17. This is the post-war arc off the heels of Marineford, detailing a bit of Luffy and Ace's past. The I'm so weak and I have my crew moment was pretty good stuff. And we got a flashback panel during Nami's journey of Luffy giving her the hat from way back, which is still one of my favorite scenes across the series, if not my favorite individual scene if I'm being completely honest. Seeing all of the Straw Hats understand Luffy's message about waiting 2 years to meet was cool, and the time skip itself felt pretty alright, where it didn't feel too unnatural, and Luffy ending the arc proclaiming once again that he'll become King of the Pirates was good. 7.5 out of 10. Now for the only Honkai Impact third representation on this list, Chapter 31 EX, and I'm going to make this very short for a reason that will become clear very quick. First of all, at points, this felt like the Durandal visual novel. Please stop talking, I get it, I yap. I'm almost 2,100 words into a script rigorously depicting my thoughts on media I got through in a month's time. Please stop yapping. It feels very convoluted having to read the same dialogue box a couple times to understand what's happening. I don't mean to brag or anything, but I read Umineko. I figured it out before the reveal. I know my reading comprehension is not terrible, but yet I still struggled here until I had a soul-crushing realization that very, very few people will be able to understand. In mid-2023, I read through the entire Euphoria visual novel. 27 hours of some of the most disgusting, repulsive, vile prose I've ever had the displeasure of sitting through. But the last 3 hours were genuinely incredible and thought-provoking. And holy shit, the content within those 3 hours at the end of the Euphoria visual novel, I'm not joking, are scarily similar to what's happening here at the final arc of Honkai Impact 3rd. And because of that, every single time the idea of the dream came up, I distorted. This shit sucks, dude. Without fail, concepts that remotely related to Euphoria made me think about Euphoria, and they just kept coming up. And it's not just this, because it's not only this specific little piece of media with 31EX, this is the setup for the finale of Part 1 in Honkai Impact 3rd. Just like how it was set up to be the finale of Euphoria. Why are they both set up so the same? Well, like, what the fuck? I can't stand it. They both clearly took some level of inspiration from Plato's allegory of the cave, and if you don't believe me, Euphoria literally takes place in a cave. Why? Euphoria out of 10. I'm done. I'm not talking about this shit anymore. Fuck my life. we got a string of Punishing Grey Raven to get through, so let's knock that out. At number 15, I have Alpha's Interlude Crimson Abyss. Straight up, I think I read this too early. It was still good. I like Alpha as a character, and we'll unpack that more later, but this was very solid content. The way that they recontextualized the prologue of the game through this interlude was great. There was a particular character who got reintroduced here, but like, I hadn't met them yet in the main story by the time of me reading this interlude, which I read directly after the first extra story, Frozen Darkness. But outside of me wishing I had saved this for a little bit later, it was still great. Alpha's "it's much easier to die than to live in hell, but we promise to keep on living together" was great. Her conflict with Lucia was great. And her being able to cry at the end was emotional, and again, great. 8 out of 10. Once up above that, at 14, I have Punishing Grey Raven Sofia Silverfang. Again, same thing. At the time of me reading this interlude, I felt like PGR had really started to hit its stride with the quality of content on display. I like that they do the Project Moon thing when, hey, look at this character, let's take a peek at their backstory, and then it's like literally just depression. 8 out of 10. Sticking with PGR smack dab in the middle of the list, I have Chapter 9 Fallen Star. I really don't have too much to say here. Ayla was a fine introduction, but it was around Chapter 9 that I was pretty solidified in the idea that Watanabe was my favorite character, which, spoiler alert, he still is, although Lucia would later give him a run for his money by the end of Chapter 12, but hey, that's October media, we'll get there when we get there. But also, big props, because they finally actually let me do the hidden story right after, kinda, at least. I mean, I did the interludes, the Watanabe and Ayla interludes, before doing the hidden story, but the point still stands. 8 out of 10. And hey, speaking of that Ayla interlude, at number 12, I've got Ayla Brilliance from PGR, which I feel like I should have liked more, where Ayla's story reminded me a bit of Dawn's, Dawn Quixote from Limbus Company. Her final line to the girl who couldn't hear her anymore being, "Come, show me what reality is," was incredible. It was really great. If I were to be completely unbiased, this is the best interlude in Punishing Grey Raven so far. However, for one reason or another, it's simply just not my favorite. Ayla is a conceptually interesting character, and this interlude definitely intrigued me more, and I'm excited to learn more about her, which to me means that the interlude was a success. And also, fuck doing this hidden note on a small note. Yes, I've been doing all the hidden notes. This one sucked. 8 out of 10. Right above that, just shy of the top 10, I have at number 11, Punishing Grey Raven, Arcade Anima, Path to Remembrance. Which, I should note, I hit this before moving on to Chapter 9, the Where It Gets Good of Punishing Grey Raven, and once again, being before the Where It Gets Good, PGR struck again, making its optional side content just straight up better than the actual main fucking content in the game. Suma, who is this villager bee-ass character, was good. Watanabe had a great line as well in saying, "I've seen people who want to die. I've never seen someone who wants to die work so hard to stay alive." And in general, Watanabe, again, this is where I really started to like him a lot, and he became in contention for my favorite character in Punishing Grey Raven at this point, only to be more solidified later on. 8 out of 10. Hope you're not tired of Punishing Grey Raven. Oh wait, I meant Watanabe, because at number 10 I have Watanabe Astral. I'm gonna keep this one super short. The hidden node was stupid because I somehow did it wrong the first time. I really don't know how I did it. The story here was able to take advantage of knowledge we gained through his other interlude and expand upon it. And the ending of the interlude was great. 8.5 out of 10. Alright. I know you want to move on to another series, but tough shit. Number 9, Bianca Veritas being my favorite interlude on the board. And it's probably because I'm biased. I just really like Bianca a lot at this point. When I was here in the story, it was really her and Watanabe fighting for my favorite character spot in PGR. Till Lucia went and did Lucia things. But again, shoot, that's October stuff. We're not talking about Lucia. Bianca lamenting all of the choices I've made, they are all correct, was depression-inducing. How can this be redemption? Was depression-inducing. It's all over was depression-inducing. The interlude was just depression. Very good, unbiased. This shit was great. 8.5 out of 10. All right, we're finally out of PGR for now. At number 8, we have another series that we've never talked about before. The next One Piece arc to talk about. That arc is Impel Down. And Impel Down was good. It was very good. Luffy's dynamic with Boa at the start was good. We stand our delusional Queen Boa. Seeing Buggy again was cool, seeing Croc again was cool, and seeing some other people who I don't remember off the top of my head was also cool. We got the introduction to Jimbei in this arc, who became rootable pretty quickly. There was a panel that had the 7 warlords on it, so here it is, my warlord ranking as of whatever chapter this was. It's a panel right after Boa hints to Ace that Luffy is in the prison. Boa, Mihawk, Kuma, Doflamingo, Jimbei, Blackbeard, Moria. And that's the order. At the end of the day, Impel Down is obviously set up for Marineford, but unlike the Sabaody Archipelago arc, Impel Down wasn't just set up. The different settings in the prison layers were cool, the callbacks to previous characters and arcs was cool, and the mostly serious tone I really enjoyed, 8.5 out of 10. At number 7, I have the best content in Punishing Grey Raven that I got through in September, and that is Extra Story Frozen Darkness. Leave it to Punishing Grey Raven to have the extra story be the best part of the month. But yeah, this was really great content. Alphas, we've both realized the folly of sacrificing ourselves for humanity was really great, especially in contrast to Grey Raven's earlier. No matter how cruel the battles are on Earth, the mountains, the rivers, and sky above us, they never seem to be affected. Earth is so beautiful, and that's why we are fighting to save it. Was great. The whole arc of Rosetta in this arc was really solid content, and the setup for Alpha's later reveal with her whispering something to Lucia was great. Even though at this point I was pretty sure I knew about that reveal, because once again, I don't mean to brag, but I did figure out the Umineko twist. It was still really well done here, 8.5 out of 10. And now we have another One Piece arc to talk about, one that I assume I'm probably higher on than most people would be, but I really liked it. So at number 6, I have Amazon Lily. And again, I really liked this arc from start to finish. Yes, it's on the shorter side for sure, but it's probably the most consistent arc in One Piece for me, even more so than another arc we've yet to talk about. And the main reason for that is that I really liked Luffy in this arc. I'm just gonna be blunt, I don't really like Luffy all that much as a protagonist. However, this arc really made me rethink my thoughts on Luffy. He has great individual scenes, namely stuff like him giving Nami the hat, again, still one of, if not my favorite scene in all of One Piece, but outside of small moments similar in nature, I really just don't find him particularly interesting or even that rootable of a character until the Amazon Lily arc, where I started to not only tolerate him, but actively like him as a character. For me, this arc is still the best individual arc when it comes to how much I liked Luffy during it. Yes, even more so than the arcs that came afterwards. And it's not just him. Yes, the duel with the sisters and Luffy was great. Boa being cocky about his ultimatum when it came to turning back the people from Stone only to be met with an altruistic Luffy was great. But Boa herself is also great. She underwent a small character arc in a very short amount of time without it feeling like an asspull, and she served as a narrative device to move the plot along into Impel Down without feeling like a plot device. It's genuinely brilliant the way everything in this arc is handled. At the end of the day, it is still a very short arc, but this is one of my favorite arcs across One Piece, 9 out of 10, I have no regrets. For the top 5, and straight up, most of y'all can skip this one. Unless you just really want to hear my thoughts on everything, or you left me on in the background, and you're just barely listening, so it doesn't matter anyways. But at number 5, I've got Big Brother US Season 27, the newest season of the summer reality TV show Big Brother, and I've seen every season of the US show. I did watch Big Brother Canada 9 when it came out, and I'm spoiled on most of the Big Brother Canada seasons, but I do plan to actually sit down and watch all of those, so I'll probably talk about those at some point. But for some background, the first season I have any memory of at all is Big Brother 15, but I mostly remember 16 as the one that I fully paid attention to, and then eventually watched every season prior, despite BB1 being BB1. I'll definitely consider doing a Big Brother season ranking at some point, just because I do love that show, and it's a tradition for my mom and I to watch it as it airs every summer, and that still hasn't changed to this day. So for a very brief, what the hell is Big Brother? At its core, it's a social strategy game with 24/7 cameras and microphones allowing for the public to stay caught up to what is going on inside the house, where 16 strangers move in and need to live together while voting each other out until only 2 remain, where they face some of their evicted house guests and ask for their vote for the grand prize of $500,000 or more recently $750,000, despite the fact that they are either directly or indirectly responsible for taking those people out of the running for the money. BB27 itself was a really good season, kind of despite itself, where we had a returning player in Rachel really run the first half of the season, only to be sniped out because of a competition loss. which is really the main thing holding this season back for me, where the lack of good gameplay this season made it really fun to watch, and this growing narrative of somebody needing to take the shot at Rachel and the intrigue of who will be the one to do it was really fun. But there was this stupid twist that sapped that completely. And to be clear, I'm not a big fan of Rachel, but I really don't like that we lost a house guest due to a competition loss. I think it sets a really bad precedent. Before now, if you were evicted, it was either because you broke a fundamental rule of the game, you quit, or you were evicted in a vote, which is the fundamentals of Big Brother as a social strategy game. Competitions have always and will always be important to the game of Big Brother. But at the end of the day, this is still Big Brother. It's not the challenge. If you fail on Big Brother, it's not because you lose a challenge, it's because you failed at the social strategy game. And this twist reverted that, and I think that's bad. Despite that, I did like the season a lot. The likes of Rachel, Vince, Keanu, Morgan at times, Ava, Captain Will were all really fun characters for the show. And while I wasn't rooting for who did end up winning the season, it was really the perfect ending to the season for me of this house that just had really, really bad players. Alright, welcome back everyone. At number 4, I have the Spring Cultivation Intervallo from Limbus Company. I'm going to keep it a buck with y'all. I read this a month and a half ago, now at the time of this script. So, all of the sinners teaching their own lessons was really fun, the interactivity of this intervallo was good, and the foreshadowing for Ryoshu was handled very well. This was a fun intervallo, one of the best, although not my favorite, praise be the Warp Train intervallo, which I'm excited to replay with the voice acting very soon. But yeah, Zichun and Sinclair were good here, and the Nameless Drunkard was also good, 9 out of 10. Moving into the top 3, I have Maybe Meant to Be, which is probably the funniest rom-com I've ever read. Here's the thing, I love rom-coms. This might be the funniest one that I've read. And also, I found it a lot funnier than Grand Blue. Sorry, I had to put that in there. Jiahan is super rootable throughout the entire story. Her dynamic with Minchul is fun. The side characters carry their weight. The hidden depth to Gia, especially with her backstory and her being a writer and the people around her subconsciously trying to push her back onto that path, is really fun. I really don't have all that much to say about Maybe Meant to Be. It's a very fun and comfortable read, and a very consistent one at that. I enjoyed it from start to finish, catching up. Y'all get me, 9 out of 10. The runner-up for this month is somehow the Limbus Company Arknights collab, where, to be honest, I thought this was going to be lower. And then Carmen happened. Holy shit. This is the part where I'm supposed to talk about the intervallo itself and all that, so let's do that. Scotty is great. Kalstit, or whatever her name, was fun. Amiel was alright. I picked up her announcer thing in the shop. Fighting literally Artorias from hit game Dark Souls was cool. Mayors was fun. And the way that they managed to integrate both Limbus and Arknights world building concepts into the same story pretty seamlessly was really great. Also, Merso talking about the sun. Peak Kino Canto 10, my beloved. But Carmen. I cannot stress enough how much I want to emphasize that Carmen is one of the most intriguing antagonists that I have seen across any piece of media ever. The way that she haunts the entire narrative of Project Moon is genuinely masterful. Once she became relevant in the collab event, my thoughts were just, like, what even is Carmen at this point? They do such an incredible job of making her as unsettling to the reader as she is to the characters themselves. Because for all intents and purposes, Carmen isn't even really there, and yet somehow you feel her presence. The way she manipulates people into distorting is just incredible, and her super warped ideology is just so fucking fascinating. Straight up, without Carmen's involvement in the tail end of this intervallo, it would have been lower. Not that the collab was bad at all, it'd still probably be top 5 on this list, but it's Carmen that really pushes it over to being this high. Holy shit, dude, 9 out of 10. Number 1, I honestly didn't even want to put this here, but I kind of had to, despite my wish to go against the grain. Number 1, I have the best One Piece arc I've read so far, Marineford. And yeah, Marineford deserves the praise it gets. Granted, I do want to make this clear. Yes, this is my favorite One Piece arc. However, in the grand scheme of arcs, this ain't even like in the conversation of top 10. Maybe it could claw its way to top 20. Maybe. But if it does, it's on the lower end. If not, it's definitely top 30. I would hope. But Marineford for me kind of falls into a similar camp that Thus Book Apocalypse did back when I was getting through that and Honkai Impact 3rd. where both arcs are very good, but neither of them, for me at least, were a masterpiece, the best of the best. And having to reconcile that is difficult. How do I articulate this idea that I do really like these arcs a lot, despite not loving them as much as others do, without sounding like I'm bashing on them? Because again, I like these arcs a lot. They're just not the best ever. So Marineford is kind of like the culmination, really, of One Piece up to this point. Going into this arc, I had high expectations for Whitebeard, and they were kind of met, where he is a very, very cool character. However, I expected, like, him to not die in this arc. Like, straight up, I was spoiled on Ace, fucking obviously, because nobody can shut up about it. And somehow, I didn't know Whitebeard died in this arc, so that came as a shock to me, but yeah, he is very cool, I get it. One thing that Marineford does really well, though, is getting the audience on Ace's side very quickly, where Ace has this charisma about him that naturally drew me to want to root for him despite knowing the inevitable outcome. Boa, on the other hand, is a bitch. But a rootable bitch. We stand our delusional queen. Doflamingo's justice speech is another donut man, where obviously, yes, I've heard the speech before and been spoiled on it, but it's still a good speech. And again, like I said, with Amazon Lily, I actually really like Luffy in this arc. More on that in a bit. Last thing to touch on is Ace's death, which again, I was spoiled on, obviously, but it was still a good scene, and his "thank you for loving me" at the end while being a Konosuba Volume 17 Aqua victim was still a really great arigato scene. The One Piece does exist is such a meme, but also it's a good scene, and Shanks showing up at the tail end was really great. All in all, Marineford was again this culmination of the first 500 or so chapters, and it was good. Was it the best arc I've ever read? Absolutely not. It's not even in a conversation for me. But it was still really damn good. Now that we're done with all that, I want to move on to talk about One Piece at large. For September, I did end off right before Fishman Island. Now I've read Fishman Island at the time of writing the script. I'm not going to talk about that. We'll get to it in October. One Piece is a largely conflicting series for me. I like One Piece. I really do. I think it has some really unique ideas. I think I have a lot of respect for this world that Oda has been able to carefully construct. And I think that it does have moments of actual, genuine brilliance. With that being said, it's also super inconsistent for me. Through reading these arcs that were mentioned in this video in particular, I've come to the conclusion that I do like One Piece a lot when it's serious. But the unserious parts of One Piece really bring it down for me, because most of the time, I just don't find it funny. But at this point, I'm pretty far in, so I am gonna finish it eventually. However, I'm taking a break for now that I'm done with Fishman Island in order to read the critically acclaimed manga, The Climber, but I'll be back on One Piece afterwards with one particular arc that I'm really looking forward to. More on that in a bit. Let's talk about the Straw Hats. Straight up, I am giving my most up-to-date rankings as of me writing this script post Fishman Island, so just keep that in mind, I guess. And also, I'm including Jinbei and Vivi. Jinbei because I know he becomes a Straw Hat, I'm spoiled, and Vivi because she's kind of like an honorary member or whatever, or maybe she even is a real Straw Hat, but whatever. Worst to best. Very bottom, I don't like Usopp, I never have. He's not like a top 10 worst character of all time, but I really do not like him. I don't find him rootable, I don't find him entertaining. Moving on. I don't like Brook, I never have. He's not like a top 10 worst character of all time, but I really do not like him. I don't find him rootable, I don't find him entertaining. Moving on. Okay, those are the only bad ones, I promise. Everyone else I like. Next up is Frankie. I find him funny sometimes. He's got some solid content, followed by Chopper. Same thing. I find him funny. He's got some emotional scenes, and I expect that he'll probably go up in the future. Vivi is kind of like in the next tier above, where I'm pretty far removed from her at this point, but I did like her a lot at the time, probably more than I like Frankie and Chopper now. Sitting next to her in the same tier as Jinbei, very new, but I like him a lot, and I'm excited to learn more about him. But for me, the top 5 Straw Hats are pretty definitive, and 4 and 5 are also kind of definitively 4 and 5. It's just kind of interchangeable. Where at 5 right now, I have Nami. Nami's great. I like her a lot. Super rootable, pretty complex, fun character, and kind of interchangeable with her as Zoro. not very complex, but is more rootable, and I like his dynamic with the other Straw Hats more than Nami's. Much like how I said the top 5 was definitive, the top 3 is also definitive, but unlike 4 and 5, the spots are very, very solid for me. At number 3, I've got Luffy, who has grown on me a lot since Amazon Lily, because he's been more serious since then, and I actually really like that side of him. Where straight up, before Amazon Lily, I had him below Frankie. Granted, he wasn't quite like Usopp and Brook level, but he was not very far off. I did not like him. At 2, I have Nico Robin, who is an incredible plot device in my opinion. I think that Oda really struck gold with her, making her whole journey about uncovering the past is masterful, because it allows for the storytelling style of drip feeding the reader stories of those pasts that Robin is uncovering without it feeling forced, because it's the natural progression of her character, especially stuff like the Void Sentry. Lastly, Sanji's my favorite Straw Hat, and if I'm being real, it's not close. Genuinely, he's on his own tier. He's really the embodiment of how I feel about One Piece at large. I love Sanji's more serious scenes, and I really do not like his gimmick, especially in Fishman Island, but we'll get to that next month. Much like the series, he is inconsistent to me. But also like the series, when I'm invested in him, I'm very invested. And the arc that I alluded to earlier is Whole Cake Island. Please, for the love of all that is holy, do not spoil that arc. All I know about it is that Sanji is important there, and that's why I'm looking forward to it. And obviously, having finished Fishman Island at this point, I'm pretty sure Big Mom will be the main antagonist, obviously. But again, I'm not spoiled. Please don't spoil me. So yeah, Marineford, 9 to 9.5 out of 10. And it's my favorite piece of media that I got through in September 2025. Alright, damn, yeah, that ended up being about 6,000 words. Awesome, yay, fun, joy. These past few weeks have been really hard on me, but at the end of the day, life is what you make of it, and time is cruel, time waits for nobody. So we might as well do what we can with the time that we do have, and for better or worse, this YouTube bullshit is something that I want to do, so I'm gonna do it. That's all for now. As always, take care, y'all.